Hello. Today, our episode is What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas, the power of our vagus nerve. And with me here today, I have Dr. Amanda. She is a chiropractor who focuses on neurooptimization. Her tools and strategies aim to help people regulate and optimize their nervous systems. Her motto is, the doctor determines the diagnosis, the patient decides the prognosis. She believes that patients have more power and control over their healing than they think. They simply need the tools and strategies to support them on their healing journey. I'm so excited to talk about the vagus nerve with you today, Amanda. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So let's start with, what is the vagus nerve?
Well, the vagus nerve is a bunch of nerve bundles, and it starts in your brain. It's cranial nerve 10. And then it connects to most of your major organs or systems within your body. So it is quite an extensive nerve, and it is what we call the master controller of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and your digest nervous system.
And what's important for us to know about it? Why should we care?
Well, especially since the last 2 years have been filled with a lot of stress, a lot of people have been dominant in their sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn nervous system. And so when that one is overactive, then you can't tap into things like the rest, digestion, healing, even intuition, the faculties of intuition, will, like thought, creativity. And so it really limits what your possibility is, because the sympathetic nervous system is about trying to keep you safe, right? And when you're trying to be always looking out for danger and your nervous system is going, then it's hard to use your creative centers and to be able to think more clearly.
How does this show up in the people that you treat?
Well, imagine, this is the example I like to use. Imagine you're face to face with a lion, right? Because that activates your sympathetic nervous system. If you're going to fight this lion, if you decide you're going to fight them, what would your body do? So you would probably get into a fighting posture. Obviously, I'm not a fighting posture person, but you'd tense your shoulders up. You would go down a little bit, your heart rate would increase, your blood pressure would increase, your digestion would actually slow down, because that is not imperative for you to run away or to fight this lion. And then they would shunt the blood from the digestive system out into the rest of your body so that you can run away, right? So if the system, which was designed for just a short period of time, is now showing up on long periods of time because people are stressed out by what they hear on the news, people are stressed out by their computers, people are stressed out from working from home, from all these things, then you start to see the symptoms of this short-term system being used for long-term, such as like high blood pressure, heart issues, digestive issues, just tension in the muscles, so that's what's showing up a lot right now.
Absolutely. And how would you say that it ties into our mental health and our spiritual health?
Oh my gosh, huge, right? Because the mental health, if you're always worried and constantly worried about being safe, then that is it's a taxing toll on your body and also on your mind, right? If everywhere you look, and even recently, we're like, okay, the surfaces that we touch, the people we come in contact with, and before people, and even now, that people are a source of connection and a sense of security and safety, have now become changed into, okay, danger. What if I get too near this person, right? So it's completely made people feel a lot more isolated, because you're too scared to go and do things, or go out, or even touch something, or even talk to somebody, because of the fear that, something bad is going to happen to you.
What are some ways that people can work on their vagal tone and their vagal health?
Well, some of them are quite simple, like taking a cold shower. Most people have access to water, which is good, and even better, turn on the cold water. And so that's one of my favorite ones, because it is so accessible for everybody, right? Cold exposure. So, I mean, I live in Canada. So when it's winter, you can go out and walk in the snow, although that's really, really cold. But cold exposure, deep breathing is a huge, and something most people don't think about is laughing. Okay.
Love that one.
Yes, that's one of my favorites. Laughing goes a long way at regulating the nervous system. So, you know, if you have your favorite funny movie, or you literally are going to try and laugh yourself. You listen to comedy, listen to something that makes you feel really good, and it'll take your mind off of that stress response, and then help shift the vagal into the more vagus nerve response. Movement has always been good for mind and body, right? Yoga and meditation, all the things that most people, quote unquote, tell you to do will help with your vagus nerve and the vagal tone.
And through my training, I've learned that using the eyes, so even just, you know, recognizing that our bodies are animals first. And so what does an animal do when it gets oriented to a new space? It looks around, it might sniff, it might, you know, paw at things. So letting our bodies have that experience too. So just gently looking around the room, even feeling our own body, squeezing ourselves, getting really centered in the weight of our body, and just giving ourselves a moment to perceive our environment, I find really slows down the nervous system and allows people to get calm in a whole different way. And oftentimes if a client comes to me and they're very agitated and their nervous system is in a big rush, I'll start with that and then ask them to observe it. Because even if you don't allow the person to observe it and integrate, it might, you know, not give the same effect.
Absolutely. You hit on some brilliant points. Like, as you were saying, it's like self-massage, especially in the throat area, because the vagus nerve comes down and innervates the throat. Not both sides, by the way, just one side at a time. Okay, you're avoiding some arteries by doing just one side. Okay, but self-massage is great. Nature is huge because we forget that we're part of nature, right? And so to reconnect with a part of who we are definitely brings you the vagal tone down. Okay? And some signs that your nervous system might not be regulating well, as you've noted with your clients, like if you can see somebody or see within yourself that you're talking a lot or talking quickly, right? If you're eating quickly, if you're rushing around to do something or do things, you're feeling fidgety, you're easily distracted, or you find yourself being on edge, or you can't rest. Like some people think that resting is boring because they want to always be doing something. So when you start seeing some of those signs, it's time for you to begin some of the vagal nerve exercise or the vagus nerve exercises.
Yeah, this country runs on cortisol. And then maybe you could talk a little bit about the opposite side of the coin, which is too slow, right?
Yes. So even with the sympathetic nervous system, one of the responses is the freeze, right? So freeze can include procrastination, like extended procrastination, or sticking your head down into the sand, you know, not wanting to look at anything that's going on, or, you know, literally turtling and going under the covers, right? And so those are also not signs that your body is not able to process the information that's going on right now.
And then can you touch on the other trauma responses as well?
Yep. So the fight is usually you can see it in an angry sort of way, like come out as anger, or you know, somebody cuts you off in traffic and the first response is, I'm going to go and, you know, pick a fight with them, right? It is the response to get you out of danger. But what our body doesn't understand is there's the real danger and then there's a perceived danger, right? The real danger is when you want the sympathetic nervous system to fully kick in because you want to get out of there, right? But for the perceived danger, your computer screen is not actually going to jump out and kill you, right? And so that's something that you really need to remember in that moment or have awareness over, okay, is this thing actually a threat to me? Right? And then choose the response accordingly. So that's the fight. Freeze we talked about. Fawn is an over people pleasing. So it's pleasing everybody else and at the expense of your own boundaries and what your personal needs are. So someone who's a people pleaser or a fawner would know how everybody else in the room is doing or feeling, but not be able to perceive it within themselves, right? They'll have no boundaries and they will give everything that they have at the expense of themselves. Right? So it's always a give, give, give for the fawn response.
You'll have to remind me, did we talk a little bit about what people coin as an empath and how that ties in with trauma responses? Did we talk about that?
I don't think so.
Is this something you've ever considered?
I believe that empaths, they have the ability to connect obviously with other people's emotions on a deep, deep level. So they are more prone to the fawn response and in terms of a trauma response, if their nervous system is dysregulated, right? If you have a proper functioning nervous system, you can still feel for somebody and have compassion towards them and even do what is within your means. But when it comes into the trauma response is when you ignore what, like your own safety or ignore something that you know is not true or right for you at the expense of, you know, trying to please somebody else.
And it being a hypervigilant adaptation.
Yes, hypervigilance is something that we also learn in our nervous system, like especially because our nervous system develops in utero, right? And nature is brilliant in that it wants to prepare you for the environment that you're going to come out into. So if you're in utero and your mom is very stressed and you know you're hearing fighting all the time because you can't hear from the womb, then your nervous system is going to come out adapting to that environment. So some people are already going to come out more hypervigilant than others, right? Versus if you had, you know, a beautiful pregnancy and everything was fabulous and roses and unicorns and sunshines, right? Then it's a different type. And then, you know, through traumas, through, you know, what our parents have taught us and other caregivers, we start to add on to our nervous system. And of course, trauma, emotional, you know, stress, things like that.
Do you feel comfortable going a little bit more into the physiology of the nervous system and the brain and how this all ties in together?
Yeah, sure. So the sympathetic nervous system is controlled by the reptilian brain, the old, one of the older parts of the brain, right? It is for survival. That survival part is the amygdala. And so it's responsible for sending that signal, danger, danger, warning, warning kind of thing. Whereas the parasympathetic, you have access to the neocortex or the higher thinking centers of the brain. And that's the creativity, will, intuition, other things that you probably would want access to if you're looking to, let's say, build a business, or you're looking for a new way to, like a new avenue in health, or you're trying to do something different than what you had before. So the amygdala is about pattern recognition. So it wants to do the pattern that keeps it safe. So let's take like illness for something, for example, like chronic low back pain or something. The pattern that keeps it safe is the person who's in chronic low back pain. They lie down because their back hurts to do it. They don't lift anything. They don't exercise. And this isn't because they can't, like it's because they're in pain, right? But that's the pattern. If over time, if you don't change that pattern, that's the pattern that it knows. That's the pattern that's safe. So it's going to keep you wanting to do that pattern. When you say, okay, I'm going to get up and exercise, it's going to go danger, danger, danger. You're going to hurt yourself. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. All these things are going to happen. All these bad, 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 right? Because of the pattern recognition. And so you really have to switch the nervous system to be able to think, okay, maybe if I do it slowly, you know, maybe if I don't rush it or something, I can still do something. So to push yourself outside of what the comfortable pattern is in the body.
And so implied in the title, we stay in these patterns, right? And so what are some ways at home, one-on-one with ourselves, we can start to untangle these things? And then what are some things that we can get support from professionals to also help unwind it?
For sure. So one of the things is to be aware of what your pattern is. So when I see people and they come in, to my office, I'll ask them, where in life are they feeling stress? And then they'll tell me whatever's going on. But okay, and then when you think about that situation, where do you feel it in your body? Where is it stored within you? So the first thing to know is, what is your body like when you're under stress? So that when that same response happens again, you can say, okay, it's because I'm in a stressful state, right? Whether you come to that realization like an hour later or in the moment, the time will shorten as you notice it more and more. So the idea being, when you're in a certain state, you have to be able to recognize that that's the state that you're in.
And how can we utilize practitioners and other professionals help to also support the healing process?
For sure. So you can do things on your own, like they're absolutely. I find if you've know people or have access to people who've maybe done it a little more than you, or who have tools that you might not have, that you can shorten the time with which if you were going to do it on your own. So if you're looking for tools and strategies, or you're saying, okay, I'm aware, I'm trying to breathe, but this isn't working, then you might need somebody else to help you, guide you more through it, or guide you through a different breath technique, or guide you through a different meditation, or something that works for you and your nervous system. Because the thing with healing is that we piece together things that work for, not everything works for everyone, because we're not all the same and don't have the same experiences. Even in the way that we learn is different. Like some people are visual, some are audio, right? And so even the tools and strategies that we have to be within how we perceive the world.
Are you familiar with how parasites and bacteria can negatively impact the vagus nerve?
Yeah, so there are some schools of thought on, like especially viruses too, that can affect anything in the body that is a stressor, I think can affect the vagus nerve. So if you think about an infection and your body trying to fight it, it is going to switch into the fight response, right? Because you're trying to get it out of your system. And then over long periods of time, it can't switch back. So, you want your body to mount the fighting response. You want to mount the fever. You want to have more energy going towards fighting in that moment. So you do want to be in a certain nervous system for that. But you also want to be able to switch out of it. And so I think the challenge comes more with chronic illness or with an autoimmune disease where the body can't figure out why it's fighting itself.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was headed with it. I've learned that parasites and bacteria, they slow down the motility of our brain to gut process because they don't want to be pooped out, and their adaptation as bacteria, so that they don't get washed out, is to dumb down that system, and a host of other adaptations they have. So I was wondering if you knew much about that, and because I know a lot more people than we are aware of have Lyme disease, have parasite infections, and that sort of thing. So, if people are listening, they're like, well, I've done this nervous system work and it's still not working. Like, it's possible there is a deeper root cause and really attack on the vagus nerve.
Absolutely. And that's a great point to bring up. And you are right about that, because we're finding a lot more that people with autoimmune conditions have had a previous strep infection, or have Epstein-Barr virus, or have some of these underlying chronic viruses, or they've not felt well for a long time. And then they, if it's for Lyme, they haven't felt well for a long time, and then they get bitten by a tick. Because some people who get bitten by a tick and have Lyme disease, let's say, can weather the storm pretty well. Right? Some people have minor symptoms. They might take antibiotics. They might, some people don't even know they've ever been bitten. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's only, let's say, years down the road that when something else is attacking the nervous system on top of having had Lyme, or the Lyme, bacteria within you, that it really starts to show up in the body.
So I think I'm seeing a range of modalities and ways to, first of all, identify that there's something imbalance, but then to remedy it. You offer chiropractic. I know EMDR and other limbic retraining programs are really helpful.
Yes.
Breath work, yoga, even just activity, being aware of the body, somatic experiencing, these sorts of things. Can you touch on the variety of tools you're aware of and who it might benefit most for? And like how to navigate when something isn't working, maybe what's the next step to try.
Right. So one of those things is that is also why you would consult a practitioner, right? So that they can see what steps would be best for you based on what you've tried already too, right? Because there is also, you want to look at the hormone component, like in a person, right? You do want to look at previous infection. Mold is huge, right? We see that a lot right now with people with mold and the Lyme and the other co-infections, right? That it's a very difficult, even sometimes we have to treat the mold first before you can treat the Lyme. So it really is an individualized thing. Now, you try the breath work because it's a great tool to have regardless of whether it's quote unquote working to the ability that you want it to or not, because we know that that's a good tool.
Absolutely.
Right? You do movement and yoga because we know that energy and exercise and movement does the body good. Now, do you go out and do CrossFit if you don't have the energy for that? Probably not, right? That's probably not a good idea, but still moving your body. You could, do something that's less painful for the joints like swimming, but movement we've always known is something that's good for the body, right? Eating the healthy diet, that's always been good. So we take the things as the building blocks, right? This tool is good to have regardless. And then if those aren't working or you need modifications, then we say, what else is underlying here? Is there a co-infection? Have I been exposed to Epstein-Barr? Have I been bitten by a tick? Is there mold in my house? And then you start looking at those components. Having a good base will help you along the way regardless.
And I'd even think that trauma and therapy or coaching or whatever, resources are available to you are also a component that's very integral in the healing process for the nervous system.
Yeah, 100% working on the amygdala, working on the past trauma, the childhood traumas, even knowing where some of your beliefs and patternings come from, and being able to see how you see the world will give you a better, it's the self-development, like the awareness and learning about yourself. You can never go wrong investing in yourself, right? That will just allow you to see the other tools even better or to use them even better.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you can think of that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share?
One of the things I find is sometimes when people come in, they're looking for you to save them or to give them the answer to everything. And what I want people to know is that they have a lot of power with it to make their own transformation, right? You seek people for guidance, but not to tell you as an authority figure, like, this is what you have to do and that has to be right for you. Because ultimately, you know your body better than anybody else. And let's say someone tells you you're a vegetarian or a vegan, and someone says, okay, you have to eat meat, and your body goes, like, that might not be a good choice or response for you just based on who you are and your priorities and everything. So just a reminder that while you get guidance from other people and they can give you ideas, they can give you tools and strategies, you have to decide what's right for yourself.
Beautiful. Right. And even the speed is going to be different from person to person. You might need to speed up, you might need to slow down, and it might be different day to day, moment to moment.
Absolutely. And there's no rush to get somewhere, right? We're always chasing the goal, but it's about who you become in the process. But also, when you're chasing something, like you're chasing a little kid, my kids, they want to run away from you. So if you're chasing your goal also wants to run further away from you, right? So you don't have to chase anything. Just open up the awareness and then decide what's in alignment with who you are as a person.
Sounds good. Do you have any books or resources to recommend? And then of course, I'll link everybody to your coursework as well.
Depending on, for the nervous system and the retraining, you touched on it, right? Tapping, various meditations. You can go on, you can do the Vipassana Institute. They have like a 10-day meditation. The Isha Sciences Institute in Inner Engineering is very good. Again, they're all different schools of thought, but find one that resonates with you. I remember the first time I tried to meditate and I was like, okay, I'm going to do a guided meditation. And then I said, this isn't good. I opened my eyes and it was like, please close your eyes. I'm like, okay, you guys got me.
Yeah, meditation's a tricky one, especially if people are steeped in their trauma. Eyes closed can be quite triggering, even sitting still. So
Yes.
I love breath work because of the active process of it. And Soma breath work has been my favorite one I've tried so far because music is involved, and those beats I find are really engaging in a way that's soothing, but also energizing and keeps me focused.
For sure. And music too. Like I talked about laughing for the vagus nerve, uplifting music makes you want to dance. That will change your nervous system state as well.
Oh, what about the toning? The
gargling?
auditory toning.
Yes.
Yes,
that's a great one. And some people gargle water because the vagus nerve is associated with the throat area. So they'll just take water and but the same principle, trying to make noise and auditory sounds to stimulate. Yes, you're right.
I've seen techniques of rubbing the inside of the ear, not the ear canal, but the fleshy part.
Yes.
And I've been using doTERRA essential oils for almost a decade now. And one of the techniques I love to use with the nervous system is the balance blend right on the earlobes, rubbing it until there's friction. And I've noticed, I was taught early on that you should gauge how far you can turn your head side to side and note how far your eyes, like find a point on the wall to see how far you can move your eyeballs, and then rub the balance oil on your ears till it's hot, and then do it again, and you get a much farther range of motion. It's quite cool.
Awesome. I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing all this with us. Do you have anything else to say?
I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I think this was a great introduction to the vagus nerve. And of course, the Googles has infinite rabbit holes you can dive into. But if you've been wondering about what the vagus nerve is, it's all the rage these days. I feel like I read it everywhere. As is appropriate. I think trauma is an emerging science and topic that people are becoming more and more versed in, thank goodness. And Dr. Amanda is another resource for us. So she offers online courses and monthly workshops, and I'll link those in the show notes if people would like to get a hold of Dr. Amanda. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
More than welcome.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.